Welcome to Connect.Vegas. We feature conversations with Las Vegas creators and leaders, learn about their work, and explore our shared love of our favorite city. And now, welcome our host, Ben Laifsky.
Hi, and welcome back to Create Vegas, where we have conversations with some interesting people in the worlds of Vegas business, technology, and creativity. I'm here on the rooftop of Taverna Costera. I'm here for the amazing Tech Alley monthly event. If you're interested in technology or startups or just want to meet interesting people, this is one of my favorite events of the month. I love being downtown and love seeing my friends here, and I always come away learning things and making new contacts. It's a gorgeous August day, and I'm introducing my conversation with one of my good friends, Dave Burlin. Many of you may know Dave. I don't know if you met him at a business event, at a technology event. He's been a wedding DJ. He's been part of many organizations, including currently Vets in Tech and Global Entrepreneur Week, which he introduces and explains in this conversation. Really excited. I always come away inspired when I talk to Dave. He's a person of great experience and interests and who has a real passion for the community, and I think that comes across here very well. So with no further ado, on to our conversation with Dave Burlin. Hi, and welcome to Connect Vegas. I'm here with Dave Burlin. Dave, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
How's it going? I'm Dave Burlin, and when people ask me what I do, I generally say a lot. I'll try and keep it as condensed as I can, but a couple of roles here in Las Vegas. I am the state coordinator for Global Entrepreneurship Week. So responsibility there is to help catalyze events all over the state of Nevada. Here coming up in November, Global Entrepreneurship Week is the 18th through the 24th. That's part of a global organization where there's 10,000 events that happen all around the world the same week. With that, I'm also the program manager for entrepreneurship for a veteran organization called Vets in Tech. We help veterans and their spouses get high-level tech and coding certifications and match them with our partners. Since we're based out of Silicon Valley, but we have a presence all over the United States, some of our partners are like Amazon, Google, Meta, Oracle, things like that. So we help them connect to high-level jobs, whether it be coding, cybersecurity, project management, and more. I'm actually in charge of the entrepreneurship program, which is catalyzing startup ecosystems in a couple of cities across the United States. So working right here out of Las Vegas. And then a few other things, because have such a diverse background. I've been a consultant for a few different industries, a lot in the wedding industry. The background is Marine Corps veteran years ago, almost 20 years ago, actually over 20 years ago. And then I was really heavy in the wedding industry for about 15 years. Lots of diverse backgrounds. I work on a project where we coach a bunch of restaurants. So yeah, a lot.
That's a great summary. I'm sure there's more to it. You've given me a lot to choose from, but let's start with the veterans that you're helping. Who is what's the use case? What leads a veteran to come work with you guys?
Yeah, so there's actually a few different tracks, and just a little background there. As a Marine Corps veteran, transition can be a lot for everyone that's coming out of service. It's actually, this year I'll be celebrating 10 years since I did a TED Talk on veteran transition. And that opened up a lot of doors, helped me get involved with a lot of different programs. So I've always been passionate about helping veterans. I've worked with programs like Bunker Labs, where they help veterans start and grow businesses. What really excited me about coming to work with Vets in Tech was it was very holistic. So it was the certification, the education piece, it was the employment piece, and the entrepreneurship. Typically, our network is over 80,000 people that we're connected to. We've got a lot of prominent partners. So ideally, it's going to be veterans. And a lot of people ask, do they have to have a really strong tech background? Not necessarily. In fact, we've talked about me taking some of the coding classes and stuff like that, which if you know me, I'm not very techie. But the joke was it's so easy a Marine could do it. But yeah, so it's generally going to be people that are looking for that next. There's two types: people that are looking for that next position, and they want to they're either involved in tech already and they want to add to their resume some new certifications and things like that. By the way, it's completely free to the veterans or their spouses to take these certifications. And some of these things could be anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000 that they can go through, apply, and then essentially it's all grant funded by our partners. So they're looking to upskill and take that next role. Or in some cases, they're looking to get another certification within the role that they already have. Example, somebody might work at a company like an Amazon, take a project management certification, and then that way they can climb the ranks in their current organization. But we want people that are looking to take that next step forward in those ranges of tech, cybersecurity, project management, things like that.
That sounds really powerful. So in your role, your entrepreneurship, you're helping people learn how to form their own venture, their own business?
Yeah, there's a few critical cities that we're looking to catalyze more resources. So Vegas being one of them, since I'm located here. Ikram Mansouri is also here as well. She's the COO. So we're really leveraging first all of the resources and stuff. I've been on for a handful of months now. I think I just crossed the 90-day mark. And while originally program manager for entrepreneurship was something I would jump right into, they realized very quickly that I have a lot of resources here that we need to maximize and understand first for the education side, the employment side, and the entrepreneurship side. But as I go deeper into that and leverage the connection through my resources at Global Entrepreneurship Week, what that will look like is a lot of focus in 6 to 8 cities that really want to increase not just the resources for veterans to start and grow businesses, for the whole ecosystem to start and grow businesses that's veteran-led. But a few of those cities are going to be New York City, Miami, Austin. In fact, right before we hopped on this call, I got a message from the director of global communities from Global Entrepreneurship Network. And she said that they have an ideal candidate of somebody who could start a chapter in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which has been on our map a little bit. Vegas and San Francisco are just some of the key cities that we'll be focusing on.
That's fantastic. I'm going to take us back for a minute. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what were your hobbies and interests when you were a young lad?
Yeah. Man, I love these interviews because sometimes there's always perceptions, right? They're like, there's people that think I've been here in Vegas forever. Some people know I'm actually from a small town outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's called Pryor. And for the redneck in me, it's actually called Pryor Creek, a home of about, 3,000 or 4,000 people, graduating class of, I think, right at 100, maybe less. But yeah, I grew up in a very small town. I was actually at-risk youth. So my hobby was getting in fights and getting in trouble. But it was interesting. That was actually part of what led me to go to the Marine Corps. As I went to the Marine Corps, and when I came back home, I had a passion. And it's one of those things where I think everything happens for a reason. There's a reason why I grew up in that small town. It was actually home to a very powerful program called Thunderbird Youth Academy. Thunderbird was part of a national organization with the Youth Challenge program for the National Guard. It's at-risk youth. So it's all kids that have dropped out of high school, which I was a high school dropout as well. High school dropouts, not that they're going to jail. It's just they're definitely on the wrong track. How do we get them back on the right track? And after the Marine Corps, I was a drill instructor for at-risk youth for 7 years. And I think 3,000 kids had come through that program. They were from all over the state of Oklahoma. And who would have thunk that it would have been in my little small town, way up in northeast Oklahoma, that program would be headquartered. I bought a house across the street, started a family. And that's where I really found a passion for personal growth and professional growth, because it was in somewhat of a professional setting. I had no idea how that would dovetail into me starting and growing businesses all over the United States and hopefully soon way beyond that.
So it sounds like a really interesting story, and we might have missed a piece of it. Like something led you to get off the wrong track and get into the Marines. Might have been trouble, or it might have been the idea of getting something better. And then the Marines seemed like what a profound about face, to pardon the pun.
Yeah.
Maybe you could talk about those couple things.
Yeah, definitely a pivot. The fun story there was, I think, again, divine timing, right? I remember sitting in my, I say living room, it was my room in the back of my mom's house, but it was like an addition to the house. And I just remember sitting there, this is 2000, January 2000, and I get a phone call on the, if you remember, phones used to be like on the wall. And
I do know something about this, yes.
So I get it. I'm just sitting there, right? Just probably not making the best decisions, get a phone call, answer the phone, and it was the Army. And the Army was like, hey, I don't know if you know this. You had taken a test a couple years ago called the ASVAB test. You scored really high, but it's about to expire. And honestly, I didn't know if I was able to pass the drug test or any of that stuff. But I talked to the Army. This was on like I don't even know what day it was, like a Thursday maybe. And then they said, let's go take a test. So I went on Friday and took a drug test. And Saturday they called me and they said, you're good to go. Let's do this. And I was like, told my mom, and she was like, did you even talk to any of the other branches? And I was like, oh yeah, I remembered a Marine movie, like Dead Presidents or something like that. And I was like, ooh, I want to be a Marine. I think it was like The Rock too. It was all like bad movies with Marines, but I was like, oh, I want to be a Marine. So I called the Marine Corps, and the Marine Corps recruiter, of course, it's a dream to not only get a new recruit that's ready to go, but to steal one from the Army, like who was right next door, made his day. And then when he found out I didn't have a high school diploma, the guy basically hung up on me and said, good luck with that. And I called him back. And this is my first handling objections deal wheel. And I basically just said, hey man, they want to go, like most kids like come to talk to you because they want stickers and keychains. Like I'll leave tomorrow. And that dude called my bluff. That was a Saturday. I had a recruiter at my house on Monday. Wednesday, I went to MEPS and I thought I was going to have this whole delayed entry program. And they were like, you leave on Sunday. So it was 8 days after talking to a Marine recruiter. I took my first ever plane ride to MCRD San Diego. It's funny because I have a friend that just made these keychains, which is the yellow footprints. And there I was just transforming everything that I thought that I knew about life. And I had no idea going in January of 2000 that I would actually not only be in the Marine Corps, but I was on my very first deployment. And I talked about this in the TED Talk. I was on my very first deployment ever when 9/11 happened. We had stopped in Hawaii on the way out in August. And then our first port of call was Darwin, Australia. My birthday is September 10th. And that was my 21st birthday. So you can imagine what I was doing, out partying, having a great time. And when they started calling everybody back to the ship, we thought it was a drill. Little did we know that the world had changed forever and we were the tip of the spear. A lot of that stuff with Pakistan, Afghanistan, Operation Enduring Freedom sounds a lot sexier than it really was. It was really just a lot of politics, but still to be there when the world changed forever, it's something that I'll never, again, divine timing. But as we came back, I got out in 2000, just at the end of 2003, right before everything started to get really hairy. And again, it was more with the intent to just come home, start a family, and try to make an impact in a different way.
In case somebody doesn't know, maybe you could describe what the yellow footprint signifies, and then also where did you end up being deployed?
Yeah, so the yellow footprints, when you get to boot camp, they have yellow footprints that kind of create the organization of a formation, which you'll be in for many times once you're through the Marine Corps. But yeah, that's the significance is day one, you get off the bus and you're on yellow footprints and you belong to the Marine Corps. As far as the deployment, our standard deployment was we were in the 15th MU. We were supposed to go to Singapore, Bali, Bahrain, all these different places. But because of 9/11, we just went straight to what I called the box. It was just a big square that we sailed in waiting for the order. And then Pakistan was the first operation to create kind of a landing pad to go from ship to shore, and then from Pakistan into Afghanistan. So I worked mainly on support for the ship. Even though I was Marine Corps infantry, every organization, every unit on a ship has to give up a certain amount of people to work for the ship. It's a very unique kind of ecosystem, the way that big deployments like that happen. And it was quite the experience. So then after we were out at sea serving and supporting, everything that kind of happened in that first six or 3 or 4 months. It was like Christmas, I think, that everybody like went to Afghanistan or came back from Afghanistan. It's been a while. I think everyone went in right around Thanksgiving. There was a big delay before we were actually able to get in. If again, the whole world stopped. It's incredible that it was almost 25 years ago. It was 24 years ago that this happened. And it's amazing how different the world is. And people forget that it was months that the world was crippled, just waiting to know what we could do, what we should do. And it's not to go political on that. It's just, we were just standing there in the middle of the ocean, waiting to get into that fight, if that's what we were going to do.
That's had to be a powerful experience. I've known you for quite a while now, but we've never really talked about this part of your life. Was it just the experience? I'm struck that you were on a bad path. You went to the Marines and you came out on a good path. And was it just the whole experience in the Marines, or was there a particular mentor in that process, or did it just get drilled out of you?
It was a lot of lessons learned, but also I think once I was part of something bigger, I realize now, I'll say this, and it's not any disrespect to anybody who believes this or lives this lifestyle. Growing up in a small town, what's really unique about that small town, remember, I told you about, it's so odd that Thunderbird Youth Academy was right there. Since I've left that town, there's been some really remarkable things that have changed. There is the America's largest industrial park is in my hometown. Very bizarre to be in such a small town, but be there. But if you can imagine some of the biggest factories, there was a Gatorade plant that got built there that was like 1.5 miles long. That it was just insane how much commerce and stuff like that had happened through that industrial park. Google has a 800-acre server farm property that's right there next to, like, it was literally, it's 2 miles from where I grew up, just right down the road. And what's bizarre about that is, or I guess not what's bizarre, if you can imagine growing up in a factory that grew into that sort of level, it's a lot of factories where the expectation was you work hard and you die. That was it. Like, you go work at this factory and they'll wrap you up into retirement and you just work your ass off until you die. And I did not subscribe to that, because there was something that made me feel like I needed to be part of something bigger. I didn't travel. Like I said, the first plane ride I ever took I was 19 years old going to the Marine Corps. So I think that unlocked something inside of who I am, so that I've now got to see at least some part of the world, right? I knew the world was a bigger place. We didn't get to stop at all the cool spots, right? I stopped in Darwin, Australia when 9/11 happened. We stopped at Perth and Sydney on the way back. And so I've been to Australia 3 times. I haven't been to any other countries. And shamefully, I haven't traveled outside of the United States since I got back. I do have my passport. I'm filing for all that stuff. I have some pretty ambitious goals of travel next year. But I think it was once I became part of something bigger, there was a responsibility that happened inside of who I was. And there was that responsibility to also take that to the next generation of at-risk youth and challenge them to understand who they are, help them lean into what they're capable of. And it's amazing, because in the 3,000 kids that came through that program, a lot of them did really good. Some of them didn't make it. Some of those kids have been killed or passed away from unthinkable things like overdose and things like that. But there's about 6 of those kids that have actually taught me more in life than I think I could have ever taught them. So there's definitely been a really cool experience to be a part of that. So yeah, it was really just being a part of something bigger And then that's part of what has led me to the roles that I serve. Because when I talked about being with Vets in Tech, I do work for them. That's a role that I have, a position. But Global Entrepreneurship Week, which you're involved in as well, that's a voluntary role. I've been a volunteer for that organization for almost 4 years now. And there's things that, and before Vets in Tech, I was a volunteer for Bunker Labs. We help veterans start and grow businesses. And that's whenever I was still DJing. I got the chance to DJ 750 weddings all over the United States since I left the Youth Academy. And it's always being a part of something bigger and having that vision and knowing and understanding where my responsibility is there.
Let's move over to talk about Global Entrepreneurship Week a little bit and that volunteer role. Volunteering is a feature or a bug that we share. But maybe if somebody doesn't know what GEW is or how somebody would get involved with that or why it's important, maybe you could talk about that.
There's also a story there. When I was in Tulsa, I was growing a wedding DJ business called DJ Connection. And I had already been down to Dallas for about a year. And this is probably 2012, 2013. I had grown the company down into Dallas. And then Dallas is 4 hours away. And Kansas City is a beautiful 4 hours away as well. And the first time that I went up to Kansas City, it was easier for me because tackling a big market like Dallas was a challenge. I was driving around listening to all these different audiobooks and things like that, just manifesting and thinking and contemplating and strategizing ways that we could grow. I want to say it was October probably of 2013, I think. There was a program that opened up in Tulsa called 1 Million Cups. And for some people that come from all over, 1 Million Cups is a pitch opportunity every Wednesday morning if it's in a community at 9 a.m. And the interesting thing there is when I found out that it came from Kansas City, I didn't really understand that Kansas City is an entrepreneurial headquarters for one of the biggest foundations, the Kauffman Foundation. And I learned that the guy who started 1 Million Cups, Tulsa was the 30th city. The guy that started 1 Million Cups was in Kansas City, and Kansas City was the headquarters where it started. So I went up there a little bit earlier the next week. And when I met Nate Olson, the guy who founded it, I just saw this whole energy and this whole ecosystem that I had never experienced before. So I started to get really plugged into what was going on in Kansas City, and Tulsa really started to get plugged in. They eventually got a new mayor where Global Entrepreneurship Week came into play. I want to say it was 2014. I was pretty sure it was 2014 November. I actually went to Kansas City. They had 95 events across the city, and big ones at libraries where they had keynote speakers that had founded big companies. And I was just like, what is this? And I'll remember there's one place where I'll have to find the picture, but they had the Entrepreneur's Pledge carved into the wall. And I was like, wow, this is really remarkable. When I saw that, it was also Tulsa started to get very involved in Global Entrepreneurship Week as well. As that city started to transform, they got a new mayor. And I remember in 2017, my friend shot this incredible video that was the mayor narrating his vision for how the city would change. And the campaign was Build It Here. And now here we are 8 years later, GT Bynum is stepping down as the mayor. But I tell people this all the time. Tulsa, Oklahoma is one of America's best kept secrets. There's a food renaissance that's happening there. There's an entrepreneurial ecosystem. There's hundreds of millions of dollars that's getting pumped through that city just to innovate, just to create new businesses and new ecosystems. And it's part of that is the responsibility and the opportunity that they had to be involved in Global Entrepreneurship Week, because now the world is watching Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so I saw that as an opportunity here. I think as I moved here, and that's a whole story as to why I moved here because of Zappos, but it was with that same ambition I really moved here to be closer to Tony Hsieh, because I had read his book about core values and delivering happiness. We injected that into our company at the DJ business in Oklahoma. And that's what actually helped it spread into multiple cities and really dig deep there. So I wanted to be a part of what was happening here in Las Vegas. So we moved here. The powerful thing there is that after Tony Hsieh passed away, that was during COVID. And I think I saw COVID as a economic heart attack to the life of this city. And I saw Global Entrepreneurship Week as a way that we might create a new springs of life in a startup ecosystem, or even just in something that would say innovate, collaborate. And I raised my hand. I talked to, it's a very small world. Cecilia was a good friend of mine that we worked together for 1 Million Cup. She was one of the organizers, Cecilia Wessinger. She actually is the director of global communities at Global Entrepreneurship Network. Got involved with GEW. I tried to get something going here in 2021. I ran out of town. Obviously, I'm still here, but most people are like, no, Dave, that's not for us. We're just going to try and get back to normal. And there is no normal post-COVID, especially in this city, because now that city was tested, and in a way we failed because we could not adjust. Like, everything was built on live events. Everything was built on the Strip and tourism, and it was paralyzed to the point people compare 2008, and some people yell at me for this because I wasn't here, but I wasn't here. And I know that every hotel was not boarded up in 2008. They were still open. They might've been miserable and things were bad, but it wasn't boarded up and shut down. I mean, I remember one of my friends, she was like longboarding down the Strip, and there was no people for miles.
I remember pictures of a family of birds walking down the center of an empty Strip.
Yeah.
I'll probably never forget that.
Yeah. And so that's where I just saw the opportunity and it's not for me to just say, I'm the king of this whole thing. It's just to create new pockets and new circles and help people collaborate and understand that we can work together. At least 1 week a year, we can all come together and celebrate what we're all doing in the world of entrepreneurship. So 2021 was rough. Nothing happened. 2022, I think we did 20 events or something like that. We did 23 or 24 events last year. Last year was tough. It was the same week as F1, and we weren't really prepared for that. Plus, as a volunteer, right, we had whatever resources we had. We had the committee, which you were on, that helped put a website together and all those things. But it's a nonprofit. We didn't have a budget. We just scraped together and we got people to raise their hand. We gave them some marketing material. We marketed their events, and we did a handful of events kind of around F1. And last year was good. This year got really excited because right after GEW last year, I ran into some people from the lieutenant governor's office, told them the challenge that we had. Sarah Johnson, she got really excited and said, what if we hosted a panel, brought the lieutenant governor, gave you guys some cool certificates, and then that would kickstart the conversation in January, which it did. We had a great panel discussion about evolving ecosystems. And then that led to some great work just last month in July, where we launched Freedom Week. We just highlighted and focused on veteran entrepreneurship, which is my super passion, but we aligned it that week to have the governor sign a proclamation declaring Global Entrepreneurship Week for the whole state of Nevada coming up this year. And I think this year we're in a very good spot for a few other reasons why the world is watching not only Las Vegas, but Nevada, to see what we can pull off. And I think this will really put us in a strong position. This sounds so weird to say that we're right there on the edge of where Tulsa was back in 2016. And you can never compare two cities. You can never compare any city to Las Vegas. Las Vegas is unique in its own. So is Tulsa. But what I've always told people is we have a lot to learn about how ecosystems evolve into everyone. Like I'll use Tulsa as an example. Tulsa is known as an oil and gas town. It was one of the most powerful oil and gas towns 100 years ago. With that, why is it in it was in 2020, during the year of the pandemic. Why is it that Tesla, when they were looking at where they were going to build their next factory, they were looking at Tulsa, Oklahoma? And I remember right after that, I called my mentor when he decided that he was not going to be a part of that. or I'm sorry, yeah, when he decided that he went with Austin instead of Tulsa, I called my mentor, a guy, Sean Copeland. Sean, phenomenal businessman. He was the Secretary of Commerce for the state of Oklahoma, owns a bunch of banks, good friend of mine. I reached out and had him on my podcast to say, what happened? And he just talked about the way that the whole community got together and showed Elon Musk what was possible in Tulsa. And the fact that he was even considering it, and it was a big headline and all that stuff, more than 150 tech companies have moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma since then. So how did they go from oil and gas to the electric car company of the world, like looking to headquarter there? So the transformation and the evolution is something that anyone can learn. Any city can learn. We are known for what? We are known for Sin City, which that's been changing, but we're still known for tourism. We're still known for the Strip. We're still known for Party Town. How can we also be known and recognized as a city of innovation? Because in my opinion, at the root of what the city was even built on, it's the most innovative city on the planet. We're not supposed to be here, right? We're not supposed to be in the middle of the desert. And here we are. And I think it really gives us that opportunity to not just learn from communities like Tulsa, but other cities around the world and around the United States of how we can evolve. And that's part of what I believe my responsibility is as the state coordinator for GEW.
Well, let's make sure we're real clear. We're having GEW, like when is it? And how does somebody get involved? Or if there's an organization that might want to hold events, let's give those nuts and bolts details out.
Yeah. So Global Entrepreneurship Week 2024 is November 18th through the 24th. It is the same week as F1, but here we stand. If you want to get involved, go to more locally, it's GEWVegas.com, www.gew or .gewvegas.com. Thank you, by the way, shameless plug, for putting that site together. There's really a couple of opportunities that we have here. You can host an event. And if you host an event, it goes up on the global site. We put it on the local site and we start promoting. And I'm doing my best to remove barriers and find venues that will open up their doors for that week for free to let people get involved. We got the International Innovation Center. We've got some libraries. We're getting the whole library system involved, a couple other private venues that I'm looking at connecting with. And we actually just talked to a very big property yesterday. I'll just build the suspense with that. But it rhymes with the M Resort Hotel and Casino. But there's some cool opportunities where we might host some stuff all over the city, except for in the middle because of all the stuff that's going on with F1. But right now, the big opportunity here is we're looking to connect with chambers of commerce, education organizations that have a focus on entrepreneurship. Those are some of the key people that we're working with, and we're working very closely with the governor's office and the lieutenant governor's office to really enforce that proclamation. It's really as simple as, if you want to host an event during that week, we're going to help promote it. And then we get to put the stats on the board that says, hey, Vegas went from doing 23 events last year to doing, 40 events this year. But we've got some more community organizers. Thank you for stepping up and repping Henderson. So that's good. And then we're always looking for volunteers. Now, I'll be really candid because we're 96 days away as of this recording. I'm in that countdown. 96 days away from this recording. We really want to be ready for everything that can happen. So with that, there's ways that you can get involved, and the volunteership will have a little bit more clarity of what that looks like as we get closer. But we've already had a handful of people signing up as volunteers because they're like, I don't care what it is, I just want to help.
Love all of that. I want to shift gears a little bit, talk about some recommendations and some personal preferences for you. What's a book that you recommend or that you've given most often as a gift?
It's one of my favorite questions. It's also one of the hardest questions. The one I think I give out the most is I give a copy of The Alchemist. And what I love about The Alchemist is that could be a book that people resonate with, whether they're on a personal journey, whether they're on a professional journey. It isn't a business book per se, but it is a beautiful story about finding your personal legend and where you fit into the world. So that's been one of my favorite ones to give, and I recommend it to anyone and everyone.
All right, let's move on to some Vegas questions. How long have you been in Vegas, and how is it different now than your first experience?
So I'm coming up on 6 years. So this November, I celebrate 6 years here in Las Vegas. I, gosh, how has it changed? How it's so beautiful. I moved downtown when I first lived here, and I was downtown at 13th and Carson. And for those of you that are familiar with downtown, that's right there on the edge of Sketch, right? There's a big lot between Public Us, which is a little corner staple coffee shop with amazing food, drinks. And there's this big lot, and I call that lot Baghdad, because as soon as you cross that, that's where you had to, like, when people ask me for $1, like I had to like flex them and ask them for $1. Like it was a little rough, but I didn't realize when I moved here right where I was 1 block over from Fremont, and it was a short walk to the center of everything. But it's amazing to see how much just that's evolved. I remember I walked by Ferguson's, where the big upside down truck art is. And back then it was just a big pile of dirt with this weird truck. And I'm like, where am I? And I had no idea kind of the vision that was shaping up for that whole area. So to see downtown really transform and come into its own, to see everything go through what we went through with pandemic, and just to see that there's really amazing people here. And that's part of why I too have chosen to celebrate and shine a spotlight on some of those people with a podcast that I've got coming out soon, just to really put a spotlight on people like you and some of the remarkable people that live here, not just the Strip.
The edge of Sketch cracked me up quite a bit. What are your favorite groups or organizations that help you connect with people in the Valley here?
There's so many. And I want to give a super shout out to one of my favorite ones that was the first group I think that really took me in. And I've not really separated from that. Just we all got busy and I was working on other things. But Social Register has been one of my favorite groups to, one, be a part of, but also just to see evolve and grow into multiple markets and things like that. Mary Grace is amazing, and she's always created great spaces. I remember one of the first big events that I went to was at the Foundation Room when she was just the COO, and now she runs it, and now she's taken it into multiple markets. And I think every time I've went there, I've met some of the most remarkable people that I've stayed connected to. So that's one of my favorites. I'm new to the Vegas Chamber as far as like being an official member, but I had went to some of their events before I ever moved here. So I'm excited to be a part of that. I think we'll have a ribbon cutting coming up soon for Vets in Tech, but it's been really cool to learn about that. And then, gosh, there's so many powerful organizations. Some that I've helped shape as far as like Bunker Labs and Vets in Tech. But I also think there's a really strong presence of the Rotaries and stuff here too. I've spoken at a few of those, and it's really great just to see people at all stages of where they're at, not just in life and in business. There's people to connect with. There's a place where everyone belongs.
The place where I first met you was Tech Alley.
Yeah.
Maybe you could explain a little bit about that group and what they do.
Tech Alley, Josh Levitt has built something really incredible there. He saw the opportunity for a place and a space to bring everyone together. So the third Saturday of every month, Tech Alley's down at Taverna Costera in the Arts District. And it started with just creating a network of those tech meetups and putting them all, hey, what if we all met the same Saturday and created some collision? And then that turned into presentations and all that stuff. So that's been a really phenomenal. And I think they just celebrated 2 years. They're coming up on 3. Wow. It goes by fast. I remember it was, 2021 post-pandemic right there. Whenever I remember people like Jeff Tatarchuk was like one of the first people that spoke, and to watch them grow their business and get all kinds of international recognition has been phenomenal. Another one that I'm really excited to be a part of now is Nevada Partners. I'm going to say this, and it flew past my mind. Everyone in the world needs to know what's happening in North Las Vegas at Nevada Partners. Like, there's a really remarkable opportunity. It's part of a promised neighborhood, which was declared by the Obama administration. It's just underserved, underprivileged neighborhoods that got some focus. They're building some really incredible programs. They've got kids, adults, seniors, everybody coming in and out of there, learning how to incorporate tech into their organization or starting businesses. I think Visa gave out 100 laptops to people that qualified that had an idea and wanted to start something. We moved the Veteran Entrepreneur Library from Vets and Tech over there. That's our unofficial headquarters. So there's a STEM lab. There's all kinds of incredible stuff. And they also have a conference that you can set your clock to. It's the first Saturday of every month. That's at Promise Startups there at Nevada Partners. So that's an incredible resource. Even on the week that it was 4th of July and that fell on that weekend, we still did it. It's like there, you can always set your clock to it. We're going to have an event going on over there. They're bringing together some really powerful organizations and great people. So really excited to see all that stuff happen.
I'm so glad you brought that up too. Let me move to a couple fun questions. What is your favorite meal in Las Vegas?
Ooh, that's a tough one too, man. So the side story, and I'll just tease it. I work with, and I'm the unofficial DJ of the World Pizza Champions, which means I'm very heavily invested in the world of pizza. I've worked with them for the last 5 years. Every time they come through for Pizza Expo. So I love a solid pizza, and there's so many good ones, but right now, maybe it's proximity, it's walking distance. I go to Double Zero Pie. Double Zero Pie and Pub is a new place right there in Chinatown. It's right on that same little strip as like the Golden Tiki. And I'm drawing a blank on the Mexican restaurant that has that place in the back, whatever it is. But yeah, Double Zero Pie and Pub is amazing. But shameless plug, I'll throw in a veteran one too. Right across the street is the Leatherneck Club. Their burgers are probably the best burgers in the whole city.
Yeah, that's a great place to eat too. Thank you for the pizza recommendation. What is your favorite place to view the city here?
Ooh, that's a good one. So this is a fun side story. I park on the garage, on top of every garage. If I ever go anywhere on the strip, I park on the top one, so I remember where I parked. But really, it's just because you get a different vantage point from every one of those. My favorite place to view the city would have to be, there's something just, and you don't even really get a great view of the strip. You get better view of mountains. But I love parking on top of the Wynn. I normally do that if I do morning walks or evening walks. Free parking for the first 3 hours, which is hard to find sometimes. But there's something about that just gets me excited. Or there's also, I'll park sometimes on top of one of the parking garages on the far end of the Fashion Show Mall. And that one does face back to the strip a little bit more, and I get that vision there. But also from up in the mountains is great too.
All right. Getting close to the end here. If you could share a phrase or a quote or an idea with just millions of people, what would that be?
And it's funny how thanks for that, because my mission is always to connect the people of our city so we can show the world who we really are. That's always been a mission for me, but that's one that lives in any city that I'm a part of, right? Anytime that I spend any time in a place like Tulsa or a place like Nashville or a place like Kansas City, Dallas, Vegas, I really believe that's possible in every community. There's always what people think, and then there's the people that are really true to that community. But the one that is the most relevant right now, and all of the global things that we're doing and really trying to spotlight Vegas, it's funny because it's a spin on a Tupac quote. I used to write a Tupac quote on every empty whiteboard, and that was, I never said that I would change the world, but I will spark the mind that does. And what I've done is I've turned that into what my vision is for Las Vegas. And it's that we don't have to change the world, but together we can change the way that the world looks at Las Vegas.
First, I want to thank you very much for this conversation. How can people follow you or get in touch or learn more about any of the things you've talked about?
Yeah, Dave Burlin there's only 3 Dave Burlins, and I think I'm the only guy that's in America doing what I'm doing. So the DaveBurlin, the Instagram is the easiest one to find. That's where I'm a little bit active. And then also LinkedIn. Those are the 2 places where I'm posting the most right now, especially in this countdown as we get to GEW. And as I kind of shape everything from there, the home base for kind of everything and the link tree is davemeansbusiness.com.
Love it. And again, I want to thank you. I really appreciate this conversation and just appreciate your time.
I love it. Thanks, man.